Hey mathematicians, let's talk about how to graph on a Cartesian coordinate plane. A Cartesian coordinate plane is what you see on the right-hand side of your screen. It's got a bunch of grids, it's got two different number lines, and it is split up into 4 sections. Each of these sections is called a quadrant because the root quad means 4. Like a quadrilateral has 4 sides and there are 4 quarters in a dollar. Now, instead of labeling them with the numbers that we normally use, which are actually called Arabic numerals, we label these quadrants with Roman numerals. Roman numerals are no longer used to do actual math because they're not the most efficient way to write numbers. You can see that there's 1 line for 1, 2 lines for 2, 3 lines for 3, and then a line and a letter V. This letter V actually means the number 5, so 1 before 5 is basically what that means. Not the most efficient way to use numbers, but since we're only using them as labels, we use Roman numerals. Now, how do you decide which quadrant is which? Well, since this is officially called a Cartesian, named after René Descartes, the French mathematician who is credited with the Cartesian coordinate plane, Cartesian and coordinate both start with a letter C. So I'm going to write a big, giant letter C on top of this graph. So notice where I just started. That's quadrant 1. You can label it like a Q1. And then I went into this next section over here. This is quadrant 2. Again, notice I'm not writing the number 2 like we know it. I'm writing the Roman numerals. That's 2 lines. And I keep going for my letter C for Cartesian coordinate plane. Here is quadrant 3. 1, 2, 3. And the final stop is quadrant 4, which is not 4 lines, it's 1 less than 5. Okay, there are 2 darker, bolder lines on this picture, on this graph. They are called axes. An axis is really just one of them. Axes is plural. An axis is one of the big number lines that we use. So there are 2 axes. They are the x-axis, which goes horizontally, and the y-axis, which goes vertically. I remember them like this. Watch my face on the screen. Let's see if I can make it bigger. We are going to make the letter X with our arms, and then close it on down. The x-axis goes side to side. Then we're going to make the letter Y with our arms. Close it up. The y-axis goes up and down. So that's how I remember them. There's one final vocab word that we want. Oh wait, let's just label them. The x-axis is the green one. Let's see if I can make it green. Gotta switch my pen color. The x-axis, eek! Here it is. Goes, where's my pen? Side to side, horizontally. Notice that I don't need to label every single number in there, but this would be the number 1, 2, this would be number 3. If I had to go in between them and say like 2.5, that's possible. This number right here is going to be 0. And same with my y-axis as I go up and down. Here's my y-axis, up and down. I have a positive side where I have positive numbers. I have where it crosses, where with 2 of them cross, they're both 0.0, and then I have negatives. So negatives are down, just like they were when we were doing single number lines, and positives are up. And just like we were doing a single number line, positives are on the right, negatives are on the left. But this point in the middle, where both number lines hit 0 at the same time, that is called the origin. Think of a superhero movie where you have to know like how they became a superhero. That is their origin story, where it all began, where Spider-Man was before he got bitten by a spider, all that kind of stuff. The origin is where everything starts. So every time you plot a point, you have to start at the point 0, 0, and then you can count up or over however many spaces you need to go. Okay, speaking of, let's talk about how to plot a point. When we plot a single point, it's called an ordered pair. It's the 2 numbers you need in order to plot that point. And it looks like this. There is the x coordinate first and the y coordinate second. it's super important that you stay in that order. Think about the alphabet. When you're singing the alphabet to yourself, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but you get all the way down, X, Y, Z. X comes first in the alphabet. It comes first in our ordered pair. You are always going to go side to side before you go up and down. And so we use those two numbers to put 1 point on the graph. Let me show you an example with this point A over here. Where did my pen go? Whoops, mouse is running laps in the house. So here's point A. This number 2, that is my x coordinate. It always goes first, and it tells me how much to move left or right. So that's a positive 2. I'm going to start at my origin, like my origin story, how I became a math teacher, superhero math teacher. Starting at the origin, going 1, 2 to the right, because it's positive. And then the second number is that 5, also positive. That tells me how much to move, up or down. So once I've hit my 2 over, left or right, I'm going to go up or down. This is positive, so I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. And I put 1 circle or 1 dot right at the point where those lines cross. Now we might get to a point where you're doing half units, and so you might not actually be on both lines. You might float in between 2 horizontal lines, or 2 horizontal lines or 2 vertical lines. But for now, we're going to start with whole numbers. So you should be plotting your dot right where 2 lines cross. So to finish up your notes, I want you to try plotting B and C. And just to be clear, we'll label them. This is point A. So right next to the dot you plot for B and right next to the dot you plot for C, label them with those letters.